Shalom, everybody, and welcome to the Yishai Fleisher Show, broadcasting live from Malkah Fleisher, where we're on the wondrous and beautiful and just tremendous view from the porch of one Rabbi Mike Feuer. Rabbi Mike, shalom and welcome.
Oh, welcome to my humble home.
That's right, and the reason we're at your home is that you're convalescing.
Convalescent I am.
Yes, you after a knee surgery.
That's right, a little bit of stitching up the medial meniscus at the root, for those of you who have some experience out there.
Yes, we definitely have some doctors that are listeners to the show. And so you had to say that again?
They stitched the root of my medial meniscus, which was torn. Yeah, drilled up through the tibia, pulled the stitch out, back through. Must have been a lot of fun for the surgeon. They were having a good time with it.
Okay, how long was that surgery?
2 hours.
Oh, wow. So they were working.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it took longer than they thought it would. Apparently.
Wow. So they stitched you
I was
up.
out cold.
You were out cold due to the amazing technology of...
chemical...
What's it called?
Anesthesia.
Anesthesiologist.
Tardema, one of my personally favorite words in modern Hebrew.
There you go, tardema.
Because it's what God did to Adam.
That's right. Wait a minute. And was the doctor here... there's an anesthesiologist in Mitzpenavo here down in Malkah Fleisher.
Yes, there is, but it wasn't him.
It wasn't him. Okay, so that's great. And also, I want to wish you what Rabbi Herschel Reichman wished me. I remember in the January 1st, 2003, he came into the synagogue at Yeshiva University. I'll never forget it. And he goes, "Shana Tova umetuka." And everybody's like, "What?" And it's this rabbi.
That's 3 months ago.
Yeah, and he goes. No, he's like, any reason to bless a Jew. It was a snowing day in Washington Heights, New York City.
Listen, the Mishnah Rosh Hashanah says that there are 4 New Years. Why not add a 5th?
There you go. So today is last night. The apple fell in Manhattan,
but not far from the tree.
That's right. It fell down. You know, they counted. I was there once. It is the most boring event ever. But anyway, they counted down from 10. And yes, the new secular year has arrived. I'm
into the Roman year. We're calling it the Roman year now.
Yeah, the Roman year, or another fair way to call it is the solar year.
Yes, the solar year.
Yeah, a little bit. It doesn't get enough credit sometimes that the solar year has got what to say to us.
Yes, it's seasonal.
Yeah, it's got, it's got the seasons behind it, like it means something in astrophysics.
Listen, we're a people that blends the solar and the lunar year.
Right.
That's one of our uniqueness.
Right.
As opposed to the Christians who go with the solar and the Muslims who go with the lunar.
Right.
There's a lot there.
But like the solar is important. Just like the trees here, they like the solar. They think about that also.
Insofar as they think, yes.
Right. And so far as they feel the heat and the forgot the name, chromoplast, whatever makes the chlorophyll, photosynthesis, all the stuff that we learned in 4th grade.
We actually had to stop and Google that. I want you to know. It's all right. We're no longer in the sciences.
That's right. We are not. So hey, it's a decade, and
I'm feeling it right now.
And right. Yes.
The show with the 90-year-old man.
It's true that we ourselves, our bodies, and our lives also go through a decade.
This isn't going to be one of those Our Body, Ourselves episodes, is
Well,
it?
Everybody out there that's listening has their own decade that they went through. Presumably. I mean, unless you're under 10 or you're dead and you're listening on the podcast in the sky.
And if you're under 10, please turn off this radio right now.
No, it's okay. It's safe. This is a family values network here. So it's been a decade. Another way of thinking of it has been also 20 years of the millennium.
Yeah, that's crazy, huh?
Yeah, and another way to think about it is that the Jewish calendar, we're also at a decade. We're at 5780.
Tashaf.
And we'll talk about that a little bit. In preparation for this show, I went to the internet and I went to the newspapers, and I wanted to see. I went to the Israeli newspapers, went to the American. I went even to a British kind of video about the last decade to review what has been. When I said to you that we'll do a review, you yourself are like, I don't remember everything.
I was going to say, that says it all, because it used to be if you're going to do a review, you'd sit down and think about what's happened the last decade. But now we don't do that anymore. We just look it up in Google.
Okay, but I still had to do some thinking about what happened and remember everything. And I made a list. that I'd like to go with you.
Did you check it twice?
I made a list. I checked it twice, and I'd like to go with it if you would be so nice that we could go through this and think about this year. So
I'm ready. Hit me with the best shot.
All right. So the first thing is, when you think about this last decade, the tens, shall we? If you think about it, what is the most single standout thing? If you would title this, I think it's pretty obvious that the major shift in the world has been the technological revolution. That's not really.
I would call it the communication revolution.
And I was going to say, and it's more specifically the communication, and more specifically the social media. But even within the social media, there's been another aspect, which is the personal cell phone revolution.
Yeah, that's why I call it communication revolution.
Right, and that has been a real change to the point that everybody's life has been altered. You just go anywhere on any airplane, any place. The phones are a part of our life. Part of it is that they really also work well. The systems work well. And the pictures get sent around. And there's obviously the big ones, which is Google. For me, that's like a very central part of my life. It's my calendar. It's my email. It's
They own you.
They own me in a sense, and I've also succumbed to that, and we'll get to that in just a second. And there's other technologies, obviously Twitter, Facebook. We'll get to the president who has propelled Twitter or propelled himself through Twitter. We'll get to that when we get to the political end. But right now we're on the technology end. And I want to say two technologies that have completely changed my life. I'm putting now Google to the side for a second, but really in the last 10 years, WhatsApp has changed my life, the way I relate to people. I want to tell you something. I still make phone calls, but not so much. I just actually had an hour-long phone call on the way here. That's rare. A lot of my phone calls now are more like voice message that I send on WhatsApp, and somebody sends me back a voice message, and we ping throughout the day.
I see this happening around me.
Yeah,
I'm completely withdrawn from it.
Okay, you are really one of the few of my friends. You are the only one, except for my work secretary, who does not use WhatsApp. When I speak to an American, Americans a lot of times don't use WhatsApp. When I speak to an American, and he says, I'm not on WhatsApp, I say, well, then you're not a Zionist. In the sense that you are not connected to us the way you can be, because I have many, many Anglo-American friends, or Canadian, Australian, whatever, British friends, who are deeply connected on WhatsApp, and we are connected therefore.
Yeah.
Right? Like one of the
fighting
things,
words.
Well, I actually don't mean as a fight. I mean to say, listen, there is a way today to be on pace to go global. Like, there is a way for me to speak to my British friends, my Australian friends, my Israeli friends, and my American friends every single day. And it it's that application. And so that has changed my life. It's also changed the way people in Israel work. We have hundreds and hundreds of work groups. Like, what I meant by hundreds is like just my Hebron work is tens of groups. And other groups, just different groups, different groupings of peoples. You know, I don't want that guy in, but I want this person in, I want this gal in, and we make a new group, and that's who I want to communicate with. So that's one. The other one is Waze.
No Waze.
I think Waze has been a tremendous change.
It is, and I don't necessarily think that one's for the better.
Why is that? Because you're a map reading guy.
Yeah, because people don't know where they're going.
Right.
You know, it's a tremendously frustrating. Not only that, but I've begun to notice that they're abandoning the need to put up proper signs any longer because of.
I have not noticed that.
Like I took my kids to Keftsuba. You know, Keftsuba is like
sure.
a little fun land type, and they're building all these new roads between here and like southern Jerusalem Hills, Mevaseret area, and it's just half the roads weren't labeled anymore. I think because people are assuming, and like literally, I stopped and asked some people like which way to go. And they looked at me and they were like, "Well, don't you have Waze?" Right. And I said no, and they looked at me like, "And where are your horns?"
Right. Well, again, you have chosen, and I actually was when I prepared this part of the show, I was thinking that it would be a little bit hard to talk with you about this. Because you're, again, one of the few people have chosen. You have a cell phone. You do use cellular technology.
I do.
You also SMS.
I do.
You also email.
I have a computer.
Right. You're on Facebook.
I'm on
you're
Facebook.
on Twitter.
I'm there. You can reach me.
Right. But you are not on the smartphone place, and that like for most people, they don't even use the term smartphone anymore. It's just
a phone.
Right.
But do you know why? Because the thing that you're not speaking about here with these technological revolutions is every revolution is a revolution in consciousness. You have to remember that these are all products of the human mind, but they are also processes that produce the human mind.
Yes, yes.
And so therefore,
the medium is the message.
Medium is the message. If you haven't read it, get out there, Marshall McLuhan, people. And therefore, the thing that's not being spoken enough about, although it's come up between you and I see it, is the level of fragmentation of consciousness and distraction that people are suffering from, and therefore the inability for a clarity, depth, and profundity of thought, which I think is a huge problem for our culture right now.
Yeah, it's a humongous problem, and a lot of the business books say that what has become a total premium is concentration.
Good. You want to pay me big bucks, I can concentrate for you.
Right. People who can concentrate are going to be making the big bucks.
Well, let it be soon. Let me know.
Right. because they have a commodity. Focus is now become a commodity.
What?
Focused work, right? Focused work is a real commodity. And there's many other technological issues. One of them being, and by the way, there's so many other technologies. For example, Wikipedia. It's a giant, unbelievable technology that really gives you information at the tip of your fingers.
Yeah, which with all its flaws seems to be better than your average encyclopedia.
Right, but like for example, I'm one of the people who can report to you something that maybe most people, most listeners, most people cannot say is, I could tell you that when you're on the wrong end of that sucker...
Oh, it's a war.
You're at war, and you're at a losing war. And what am I talking about here is, for example, the Jewish community of Hebron maligned in... especially in Wikipedia, and when we try to change it, they come down on us like a hammer.
Yeah, because there are different realms of authority there.
Right.
And by the way, that's another thing to point out. Every technological revolution brings a new power class into position. Mm-hmm. And one of the biggest problematics, I think, of the technological revolutions is that these power classes are completely unregulated, and they're often unseen. Mm-hmm. Recently, I just read this big multi-part story in the New York Times, speaking of old world media, on tracking devices, or not on tracking devices, on tracking applications in cell phones, and the degree to which that information is available to third parties, and the value. And not only the value, but the sensitive level of information. They're able to extract out names, places, people who are stopping at roadside motels, people who are going to, drug treatment clinics, people, without any consent.
When you were a kid, we used to watch films about, like, the CIA trying to track somebody.
Yeah.
So they would be like, oh, he just used his credit card.
Right.
Oh, he just used a payphone. And
it was like, whoa.
Whoa, they're really following. Today,
you're just carrying the thing around yourself.
They have your heartbeats.
Yeah.
Your steps.
Yeah.
Where you're at, how much money you... I mean, and I was about to get to that, and the title of what you just talked about, I call it Snowden and Assange.
Uh-huh.
Right? So here are two guys who represent, rather courageously and rather at their own tremendous life expense...
Oh, yeah.
Here's two dudes who I am a user of all these technologies, but I look at these two guys personally as somewhat heroic. I not, and I know there's an argument about that, but for me, I see Snowden as now not in the sense that he sold out his country, which is not nice, but in the sense, of like, hey, there's a phenomenon that's going on, and it's not transparent. And here's a guy who really blew a real whistle. And came back to, and then I remembered all the cases that we studied in law school about the right to privacy,
which is gone.
I mean, the rate at which it's gone, the hugeness of which is gone is underreported. It
has nothing to do with underreporting. Nobody cares. Nobody wants to know anymore. It's worth it,
right?
Because convenience has become the supreme value of the new culture of communication. You yourself said it.
It's true. Yes, and I'm willing to give up a certain amount, but I really rather it didn't have to be that way. Meaning to say,
but then you're gonna start to pay for it.
Well, there is a move back to that, but I even think you're still making a lot of money off of me if you know a certain amount. I think that Congress in America and here in Israel could regulate, and in Europe they are. Now they made a big move in Europe that now every website asks you, do you accept that we're going to be following you every step, and there's going to be
and everyone just says yes.
You just say yes. That sucks. Okay, that did not that was a loophole that was just
because
the opt-in buy-in option,
because everybody wants the service and nobody wants to pay for it.
Okay, so that's Snowden and Assange. Snowden revealed the NSA's meta collection of data, and Assange revealed a lot of political data and hidden data. WikiLeaks. So Assange and Snowden are the opposite of Google and Facebook's amazing ability to not just track you. And here's the catchword today: it's big data.
Yeah, they've commodified you.
Yes, and they can also keep all of your stuff in a small place, meaning to say all that information. Remember in those CIA movies, they once they caught the guy, they would slap down a giant file on the table.
Folder,
and
like
they would open it up,
flipping through, like, oh, look at that.
Look, and here's a picture of you here. This, right. So today, all that info, it's all and we're talking about phone calls. We're talking about video. We're talking about and data just keeps growing, and so privacy has become a big issue. So this was a big turn in human events.
One which went unnoticed.
Unnoticed. I don't know if I agree to that word.
The privacy one went unnoticed.
The privacy one went unnoticed.
The privacy one went unnoticed. And we're
and
trying to reel that back in right now, and I think it's
very weakly.
It ain't happened.
Right. But that has been, this decade, and I actually measured against my daughter, who's 12 years old, and I just remember being with a Nokia brick phone,
which I have in my pocket.
Right. Walking on the hills of Beit El, and I said to her the other day, or some months ago, actually, I said to her, we couldn't send pictures when you were born. And so, it's been a tremendous change. And there's so much more to discuss about that, because that change has also led to a different social fabric. One of them is called the mimetic wars, the wars of memes and the war of mimetic tribes. Memes are phrases or thought groups, and the way that they're kind of attacking each other. And a great phrase that I heard is that a general was asked, I think it was McChrystal, was asked whether people going to West Point and stuff studying war strategy should continue to play chess.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, well, yes, it's a good game, but on the other hand, the problem is it's not a binary game anymore of Russia versus America or two powers.
Yeah,
we're talking about every piece on the board
is its own
autonomous
entity,
right? Yeah. And that is that there's a lot of changes there, but there's also a lot of beauty in it. There's a lot of beauty in it. Tonight, I'm going to go to the Siyum HaShas in Jerusalem, the end of the cycle of the 7-year learning of the Babylonian Talmud. And you know what? It's just going to be everywhere. All
it's
the
a global
videos.
Event.
It's a global event.
For sure.
And there's a lot of beauty, and people like us also get a chance to speak it out. And here's the word I forgot. There's a lot of information, but it's also a spawning ground for disinformation. There's just as much disinformation as there is information today.
Well, listen, we've spoken about this before, that once upon a time, censorship and the control of consciousness happened through limiting people's access. But now that's impossible. So what happens is it's through distraction.
Right.
If you just level a person's horizon of information, you flood them with the meaningful and the meaningless, the false and the true, and then what happens is that the real power in our world lies in the authority to sort information into meaningful structures. I tell you, on the Jewish story, on one level, that's what I'm trying to do for people, is give them a framework within which they can sort of integrate and assimilate and filter what matters and what doesn't.
Very tricky. And even your show is a lot of info.
And you're already getting it sort of post-production.
Right. Let me just make a plug there for that. Then another thing that happened in this decade is the advent of the Land of Israel network.
That's right.
And for me personally, this is the, I guess, third network that I've been involved in this decade. But all over my life so far, 4 networks. Started with Arutz Sheva. That's where I brought Ari and Jeremy in to Israel National Radio, and we started shows there. We started that whole thing. From there, I moved to Galei Israel. For a while, I was by myself. It was an Israeli broadcast terrestrial. And then from there to Voice of Israel.
Aleha Shalom.
Aleha Shalom. It was a great network, but died. And now this new, from the ashes, ariseth this new network. And
you picked me up along the way.
That's right. That's exactly correct. We picked up a lot of great folks, especially yourself. And you have The Jewish Story, which is found at jewishstory.co. And also on the Land of Israel Network. People can email you at ravmike@thelandofisrael.com and also facebook.com/ravmike.
Hey.
So that's also a great advent. And we are, of course, using one of the weird things about Arutz Sheva back then was that it was ahead of its curve in terms of technology. We were already broadcasting 15 years ago on the internet. So
don't forget the boat.
That was another iteration. I came 2 weeks after the boat was gone. By the way, last piece of technology that I want to talk about, then I want to get to the other sections, is Bitcoin.
Oh.
We are pre the Bitcoin. We are just at the...
We're still struggling with whether that's going to fly or not.
But let me put it this way. My buddy Josh Wander showed me that he carries now a credit card that is a Bitcoin credit card. Meaning to say it converts Bitcoin currency into usable currency today.
Oh, it's happening. The blockchain technology will eventually replace
So I'm saying
the full faith and trust of governments that no one trusts anymore.
Right. Okay, so we are on a beginning, right? We're on the cusp of another thing, and we're also on the cusp of another thing I totally forgot to mention is the genetics revolution. Also, we're on the cusp of that, but
Scary.
But basically mapping the genome is akin to breaking the hydrogen atom. It's like understanding how things work at a micro level, at the atomic level, subatomic level, and so we're starting to understand how what makes us up, and information about ourselves, and that will also lead to disease discovery. But that's the cutting edge. We're still there.
Yeah, we're still on the cusp.
We're still on the cusp. Okay, let's talk a little bit of politics. One individual who had an impact and was big in this decade was President Obama.
Absolutely.
Okay, he was what was his first name? I forgot.
Barack.
Right?
How
Barack
could you forget that?
I remember the Hussein part. I don't know why that happened.
Ooh,
no,
don't go there.
It slipped my mind because one of the things that actually it's not a surprise that it slipped my mind because he was. I watched a video of him today. Darn eloquent.
Oh, absolutely.
In my heterosexual opinion, attractive.
Yeah, sure.
A good-looking fella, and just had it. A black president of the United States, this country that has these race tensions on the one hand, but on the other hand, also is the place where black people have also risen to great heights. If it's from entertainment to sports, but they've become very, very famous. If it's anybody, starting from a Bill Cosby to a Michael Jordan, I don't mean to whatever happened to Bill Cosby, whatever, but Oprah Winfrey, and there came President Barack Hussein Obama, and he had 8 years. He had 8 years at the helm.
I mean, it's an important thing to just give credit to America as a country for that, because it still, in my eyes, with all the struggles that America's having, and they're very real right now, needs to constantly be held up as the greatest and most successful political experiment in human history, right? To go from a country where slavery was a foundational institution, and like you pointed out, that's far from over, that struggle within American society, but to be able to evolve on the level where you can go from slavery as a foundational institution to having a black man as the president of the United States shows a vision in the foundation of the country, which is unparalleled.
Right, but at the same time, though, the Obama experiment was, from our perspective, any case, from perspective here in Israel, or I share...
Politics didn't work out well.
Right. No, this guy was turned out... The way that people here in Israel, in large measure, saw him was anti-Israel and pro-radical Islamic regimes. And in his time, we're going to get to the Arab world in a little bit, really saw a... what's the word I'm looking for? When things start to break down?
Breakdown?
A breakdown.
Deterioration
of the fabric of Arab civilization. In some part due to the destabilization brought about by the Obama regime, in the sense that he might...
Threw some long-term allies under the bus.
Right, threw long-term allies under the bus, and I'll never forget some of his
and also
gestures.
shifted America's posture of power within the Middle East, which was a major destabilizing factor.
I'll never forget, like, if there's a when I think of Obama, I'll never forget this image of him with the crossed feet on the desk, and the shot of him talking to Prime Minister Netanyahu from the sole side of the picture, and that was sent out by the White House as a signal.
Oh yeah, in the Arab world, that's a very clear message.
Like we're looking down on you, Israel. We're the boss of you, Israel. I'll never forget that. Like that's to me like the encapsulation. When I saw the video of him this morning, I was like, yeah, that made you look good. But I recall how you related to us, and that was 8 years. We'll get to a second about some other stuff that came out of President Obama, but he had a big impact here. A counter fulcrum to Obama is Prime Minister Netanyahu. His standing up to President Obama.
He was the best prime minister of the decade, no question.
Yeah, right. As in, he was the only prime minister of the decade. But But his shining moment and what brought Israel to a different place, ironically, was standing up to President Obama, going to Congress, al chamo v'alapo, against his, Obama's interests, rallying the troops in America against the president, against the Iran deal.
The entire relationship between American and Israeli politics.
Yeah, it made Israel,
which is hasn't completely shaken out yet. I mean, it's really hard to know. I mean, there's a lot of people who see that as a negative act in terms of making Israel a partisan political issue. At the same time, it was in defense of our national interests. So it's kind of hard to know.
In many ways, and he raised Israel to a different stature, and President Trump has accepted Israel as a partner, not equal. Nobody's equal to the United States in a power sense, but definitely an ally and not a puppet state.
Right, but you hear what I'm saying, and that once you go that route, then whoever it is that replaces President Trump in next 4 years or in 4 years after, if they come from the other side of the aisle, then Israel is now officially a partisan issue.
Right. That is definitely something that has happened in the last 10 years, and that Israel has become much more of a Republican, Christian, conservative, pro-Israel, Fox, pro-Israel, as opposed to MSNBC Democrats who have gone far more left, meaning to say the partisanship has also polarized both of these parties.
Yes.
And now, please don't misunderstand me. I'm sitting here with Rabbi Mike Feuer on this beautiful balcony in Ma'ale Adumim, where Jerusalem is growing. So why are we talking about America? These things have a global influence.
Yeah, they're the leader of global culture.
Right. There you go.
When we replace them, we'll talk about us.
Right. And one of the big things that President Obama did was also polarize the Iran issue by bringing Iran into the family of nations instead of ostracization. And one of the more radical things that President Trump was able to do was to repeal that agreement. I thought it was almost unheard of, to just go 180 degrees against a previous administration's decision in such
that in itself is problematic for the United States political posture in the world. I mean, once you have the willingness to back out of a political agreement with another nation based on a change in administration, it casts a lot of doubt on what it is that's coming down the line.
Right.
It's so what's going to happen to all the great achievements that we've had here under the Trump administration should he be replaced by a Democrat? Because he also set the precedent for that.
Can I say something about what you're saying?
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying. You're making fine points, but you know what though? Let's not go there, and I'll explain to you what I mean. We're looking backwards. We're looking at the last 10 years. Where it's going to go, I'll tell you one thing I can tell you that I've sensed in the last year of Israeli politics.
It ain't going anywhere.
It's not that predictable.
Yeah, that's true.
Obama was not predictable. Trump was not predictable. What's happening now in Israeli politics is not predictable. What happened with Boris Johnson is not that predictable. And it's just it's become not... political scientists can look back. Very few can really look forward.
2020 hindsight.
Nyek. All right. Let's just now go to a few other issues, and then we'll go to the Torah section. Interesting thing I found was Israeli women in culture. Gal Gadot was Wonder Woman, and Netta Barzilai won the Eurovision.
Right.
And we also had successes in Olympics. I didn't actually look that part up, but these two women. And there are others that have become kind of have a either national in Israel or global fame, but I don't know, something happened to Israel with Gal Gadot
and
Netta Barzilai. Something happened where Israel, I think in this decade, Israel has become just as much of a pariah for some, but in other ways, people are accepting the fact that Israel's here.
We've got a much higher profile.
Right.
I mean, to me, that's what those two women represent.
But profile and
in a positive, in a normative. Listen, I have my misgivings about judging our cultural achievements through Eurovision or sort of blockbuster movies. But one thing which they certainly represent is just a large-scale normative human culture.
Right.
It's we're succeeding on that scale of human culture. That is a normalization that we have not achieved previously.
Right, and I didn't love the Netta Barzilai song, and I watched some of Wonder Woman on the plane, and
I didn't watch it.
I couldn't keep going with it. It was some kind of Greco island Atlantis type like stuff that I'm not a big fantasy guy in the first place. So it smacked me of some kind of a genre that just had no.
Which I actually love, but I didn't watch the movie.
Right. Okay. So it was that, but it was like horses and what do you call them? Like a horse person type thing.
Centaur.
Yeah, like that kind of stuff. It was that world, and I'm like, that's not exactly Israel. But you know what? Exactly what you said, which is just a cultural normalization. Interesting thing that I tweeted out recently is that Israel, Jerusalem is the, according to one marker, the fastest growing tourist attraction in the world. Fastest growing. It's still number 61 on the top.
Fastest growing.
But the fastest growing, it leaped up, and it's going to leap up by 1 million tourists next year.
Oh Lord, we got to work on the roads.
Right. So well. Because you
transportation
don't,
system.
Can I tell you something? Because you don't like to travel so much.
I
can tell you that we're really not in bad shape.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm telling you. Like now, there's a few.
I travel from here to Jerusalem almost every day. It's a big pain in the tush.
Right, but you go to most places now. Okay, the northeast of the United States is very railed.
Right.
But most places are not, and so we're doing pretty good. Another Israel thing that I wanted to talk about is the Israel nation-state law.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that was I'm involved with a lot of people who were behind that. A lot, like all kinds of my friends were really pushing that. But basically, the many-year effort to put into law what most of us understand as basic things, which is that Israel's the Jewish state of the Jewish people, is the nation-state of the Jewish people, and that its calendar is such, and that its language is such, and that it's Hebrew and it's Jewish, and that's what it's meant to do.
Yeah, but it's critical to point out it's not just to put into law, to make it one of the basic laws,
right.
Because the nature of Israeli constitutional law is such that if it doesn't have an entrenched status, then other laws don't have to be measured according to it. So the goal was to make sure that it counterbalances the sort of pluralistic, universalistic laws which were already entrenched as part of the Constitution, in order to give some balance to the fact that there's an ethnic character to our nation state, which we see to be an uncompromising principle.
Very good, very well stated. So that was a huge deal. But now. Okay, good. Well, let's keep that in abeyance for a second.
Okay.
We'll get to that back in a second. Let me just talk about very quick 4 social phenomenons. American mass shootings.
That's not a product of the last decade.
It's been pretty pervasive in the last decade.
Progressive, but listen, I was when I was in the late '90s, I was working with at-risk youth when the Columbine shooting happened. That's been around.
Was that late '90s?
Yeah, absolutely.
Holy cow!
Yeah.
Okay.
There's been an uptick.
There's been an uptick. It seems like it's a regular thing, and I have a little. But by the way, folks, if you ever hear me say things that are of dark humor, that's only because I like dark humor, okay?
I mean, he's wearing all black right now. You can't see it. But
actually, it's an ode. I'm wearing black pants and a black kind of tight sweater.
I wasn't kidding.
It's an ode to...
The Matrix.
No.
Oh, sorry.
It's an ode to Steve Jobs, I did the Steve Jobs thing today, he passed away this decade.
Yeah.
Okay.
Apple.
Yeah, so...
Thing, yeah.
So...
But it's not a turtleneck.
It's not a turtleneck, but it's close to it. You see this thing? It's like a turtleneckish thing. In any case... wait, where were we at?
Mass shootings, not this decade.
Okay, and now,
social phenomena.
So I have this dark humor thing. I say to people, it's not that America's anti-Semitic. It's just that people shoot people there.
Yeah, and they hate each other.
And so therefore,
and it's pervasively armed.
Right, and you could be a show in Vegas or a church or a school or a shul. Somebody finds a reason to shoot you.
And you can buy an AR-15 in Walmart.
Right. Don't feel so bad. Don't be like, oh, my God, the whole place is anti-Semitic. It's just that people shoot one another there.
Humans. You got in the way of the fire, yeah.
No, maybe he is an anti-Semite, that guy. But the next guy is anti the other thing.
Something else, yeah.
So I know that's just dark humor. But there is a truth to it. There is a truth to it. I mean, to say, I don't think that the whole country is turning anti-Semitic. On the other hand,
there's something going on.
There is something going on. And there's certainly an anti-Israel teaching that's going on in the Jewish left, in the Reform conservative movements, and therefore certainly on intellectuals on campus.
Yeah, by the way, the Jewish left is returning to its roots. Let's just remember that. This is not a new phenomenon. Its roots are in a non-national, non-ethnic, religious-based, sort of not faith-based in the Christian sense, but meaning as opposed to the national entity, and they're fighting tooth and nail right now to distance themselves from us.
Right.
And it's not necessarily going to end well, that.
No, it never does, because when you separate Jews that separate out from the Jewish people, they always fade away with time, but they always become the enemies of the Jews.
Yeah, they don't just fade away.
They always become the enemies of the Jews.
Yeah,
we need to say,
it's always a messy breakup.
Look at the Karaites and the how do you call it Sadokim in English? Sadducees. And just biblically speaking, every nation that separates out from the Jewish people become its enemies. Okay,
we just finished off Hanukkah. That's the classic.
That's right. Oh my gosh, Hanukkah. We had so much to talk about, but it didn't happen.
We're gonna let it go next year.
Next social phenomenon. It might seem like a small one, but it's in my world, it's a big one. It's called selfie. just selfies. Just the concept of selfie. The concept of selfie. I always make a joke at Marta Machpelah. I'm like, before we leave here, we have to do the mitzvah of selfie. Okay, do it in the Israeli accent, and people are like, yes. Let's not forget to do the selfie. And the selfie means something, right? For me, it actually has a political purpose, which is like
you get a picture of somebody actually there.
Right. So people are there. People are not afraid. People are happy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, you know? And being, you know, and you had even here a Knesset member who taking a selfie with him became like an iconic thing to do.
It was Oren
Chazan, right?
Yeah,
and so like you took a selfie with him. It became like a national kind of...
It was his major achievement.
Well, but it was an interesting thing. It's like, and he all over the world, people would just stop him and take a selfie with him. I took a selfie with Prime Minister Netanyahu some months ago, and I said to him, "Adoni Rosh HaMemshala, can I take a selfie with you?" You know, and he turned and he looked into the camera to fulfill the mitzvah of selfie.
Everyone's got their selfie face.
Yeah, he actually half smiled. It was great. People, you know, and I told everybody on Twitter and Facebook that he asked me to take a selfie with him, and so I was like willing to do that. And it was my little joke. Okay, selfie. All right, there's probably more to talk about that, but let's go into the next thing. Two more things which we haven't touched on at all, but they're huge.
Huge.
They're huge, and they are this decade's sexual issues, same-sex legalization, which was really one of the cornerstone cultural moments of this decade.
Absolutely.
And the Me Too movement.
Yes. Which I think has a direct relationship.
Yes, definitely.
I think that to call it same-sex legalization, I think is a bit of a misnomer. I would say same-sex normalization.
Right. Legalization
and
of
the
marriage.
legalization of marriage was a symptom of that.
Right.
Right. And why do I say that there is a relationship between that and the Me Too movement? I think because in the end of the day, the argument that there's some sort of core healthy sexuality based on what the Christian world calls family values is very hard to argue when you also have a widespread culture of sexual abuse.
Right.
And so the two work together in the sense that, hey, man, you can't tell me what to do in my bedroom when your claims to sort of like normalcy are wrapped up with these sort of like abusive power structures. And so like there's been a loss of compass in Western culture around questions of sexuality, which is going to be very hard to regain. Right.
And so I read an essay called The Mimetic Tribe Wars that my friend Muttel Wolf told me to read. Very important essay. I think you would like it a lot.
I'll have to check it out.
And they see the Supreme Court decision to legalize gay marriage as one of the cornerstone pillars where really conservatism, Christian values type of thing, just lost
big time.
Just like but it was like the end of like a certain era of like trying to say no we should
absolutely
right. So it was
absolutely.
And here in Israel,
it was never a fight.
Well, it's interesting you say that because what's interesting here in Israel is that we have some element here that you don't have in America, which is the Haredi element.
Yeah.
And
not only that, we have institutionalized religion.
Right.
I mean, you want to get married here, it doesn't matter what your attitude are. You have to go through religion.
Right. But the Haredi element, without them, it would have, they are stalwart in their defiance.
And the Arab world.
Right, that's right, and the Arab world.
Forget about the conservative elements of our society.
Okay,
are quite significant.
Well, that's actually a great transition to my last points here. So the reason I say that this is this is a great transition is because I left one thing for the very end, and you know what? It's not the usual thing for me to leave this to the end. I would have left like Israel to the end and what has happened here, but in my short effort for research last night and this morning. A thought dawned on me, which is that the Jewish story in the last 10 years has been relatively stable.
Yeah.
It's been there's stories, and we actually had 3 mini wars with Gaza, etc. But the last 10 years have been relatively stable, as opposed to the Arab world, which has been
certainly in comparison.
Right, like no, it was just a thought. I was like, wait a minute, we've been like just ticking along.
Yeah, we got some cracks showing. The next decade, who knows what it'll be? But you're right. Looking back, we're looking back.
Yeah, we're looking back. The last 10 years have been relatively calm in terms of any big tumultuous tectonic shifts. While the Arab world has had Obama led to the Arab Spring protests, led to there was ISIS, which was an Islamic movement that took over large swaths of land.
Yeah, like whole states.
You had a rebellion in Syria that ended up
still
going on. They're fighting in Idlib right now.
Yeah.
Right, and we're talking about reported 500,000 dead.
Yeah,
but it's easily
probably twice that.
Right, if not more. So we're talking about 500,000 people dead, millions displaced.
Yes.
We're
Europe
talking
flooded
about
with
exactly. We're talking about with Europe flooding in so-called refugees, some not refugees, whatever it is. I'm not making a determination on that.
People.
That fact of what you just said also brought about a change in politics in Europe.
A big time, yeah.
I just want to give credit that this part I did not dawn on me until I had a conversation this morning with my friend named Barry Goldgrab, and he said that to me. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's yet another twist."
Oh yeah,
right. That the refugee issue caused the advent of people like Oban and the populist,
a resurgent populist nationalist
right-wing
element within Europe, which had been completely mukse, as we say around here, up until now. But suddenly, like a sense of survival.
Right,
welled up from within some of these European nation states that have been drifting off into the EU, sort of what do you call that, Soma consciousness.
The OU kind of
EU.
We're not the OU.
Not the OU. No, we love the OU.
The Somite OU is kosher.
Yeah.
We're talking about the EU's. You're talking about kind of liberal left. We're talking about universalism, globalism.
Yeah.
But suddenly there came these Muslim refugees, these Arab Muslim refugees, or not necessarily just Arab, sometimes Turkey, whatever it is, from different places, all kinds of nationalities, but definitely an Islamic Middle East influx into the Middle East.
Not multicultural Europeans, and that's the key.
Right.
Is that whole image? And actually, I want to take back the word universalists.
Okay.
You can call them the globalists, multiculturalists, but the truth is, I think that you and I are both universalists.
Right.
We just see that the peoplehood and the nation as the unit of universalism. Like, yeah, let's all get along. I'm going to be in my nation. You're going to be in your nation. We're not individualists, and that's an important distinction because if you look in the beginning of the last century, the universalists were nationalists.
Right.
And
I keep trying to make that point to people.
Yeah.
Liberalism, nationalism was liberalism. And if you think about it, it is a liberal idea, but we're not going to go there right now. The most important thing is the Arabs. The Arabs are.
Never thought I heard you say that.
Yeah, no. It dawned on me today, as I'm from your porch here. We can see the kingdom of Jordan occupying the Transjordan.
The Transjordanian Ridge.
Notice how I said that? Okay,
yes,
yeah.
I heard it.
And then you have past that, so you have this country that's teetering. It could easily...
It's been teetering for a while.
Right, but we all know that one of the open secrets is that Israel and the West are propping up this regime.
Oh, yeah.
Right after that, could practically see it, is Iraq.
Which has gone past teetering.
Right, which is a broken land, right, and it's just an Iranian type of open...
what's left of it, yeah.
Right, and Iraq, you mean, right?
Yes, because ISIS already destroyed...
So ISIS has part of it. The Kurds, our potential potential allies, have part of it. But then the Iranian thing...
People.
And as we speak, there's a tension right now in the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad.
They busted through the front gates.
Right.
They didn't get all the way into the building.
Right. Okay, so we got this whole... So and then past that is the real player. Like, as I look north here, there's the real players here are the old empires. Turkey.
Uh-huh.
And Iran. The real players right now, by the way, are
the
three ancient empires.
It's true.
It's Iran, it's Israel, and it's Turkey, which is not an ancient but an old empire.
They're sitting on that Hittite empire center there that's like about as old as it gets.
Right, and then you also have Egypt, a player, and all that,
Sure.
and the rest are
Well,
deep
listen,
doo-doo.
because we're finally coming to the point where the borders set up in post-World War II, post-colonial sort of guilt and expediency are showing themselves to be what they are, which is complete fictions.
Right.
And the question is are we going to have the foresight, the courage, and the fortitude to push through what lies ahead in order to create a more stable region?
Okay. And so therein lies, there's a little elephant in the room. And that little elephant,
on my porch?
Yeah, there's a small elephant, and that is the Palestinian question.
Oh.
Because what you just talked about is kind of fake European lines and creating a more stable environment here in the Middle East. One of the fictions that has been
keystone fictions.
Right, keystone fiction that has been propagated for a long time is an anti-Israel element. By whom? Who's been the big backers of it? The Arab states.
Oh, yes.
Guess what? The Arab states are looking at Palestine, that whole issue, as an unhelpful little hindrance right now.
They're suddenly looking back at the last 20, 30 years of their bank checks, of their political, decisions, and they're like, "Oh my goodness!
Right,
what did we do?"
Right, these guys are standing. Just to clarify it for everybody, the Palestinian issue, the so-called Palestinian issue that has been created, is actually hindering the Arabs from locking arms with Israel, who they desperately need. Their Semitic brothers, Ishmael, is coming to Israel and being like, "Hey, Jews, I got this big bad Iranian guy next door. Can you help me out with him?"
And furthermore, how did you manage to create a stable economy and a thriving culture in this region?
You're right. Yeah, that's a great added point. Okay, and you have got these European states who were just yesterday deep anti-Semites, who are now like
yesterday.
Just yesterday, and I'm going to get to that's going to also be a transition
today and tomorrow.
No, because you know what? Because you know what I learned about the Hungarians,
What's
and
that?
the Ukrainians, and the Poles. You know what I've learned about them?
What's that?
That they're xenophobes, and xenophobes is different than anti-Semites. What I mean is, some of these. You know who's an anti-Semite today? The Germans, parts of the French and the British societies. They're anti-Semites because they keep on trying to screw with the Jews. And they keep on trying to get into our kishkes. The Hungarians and the Poles and
just
all that.
Want us out.
They want all the other guys out.
Yes,
But they're
I understood the distinction
non-Hungarian. You know what?
We'll see if that's true.
You know what? I see today that the Hungarian types that were really disgusting anti-Semites are like looking at Israel as like, okay, you're a fellow
strong ethnic nation state. I know exactly where you're going.
Right.
In the same way that you'll have the white supremacists in America who can sort of see Zionism, or at least a strong Jewish nation state, as a good thing, but would like to see all the commie Jew, this, that, and other things out of their country. Right. I'm not convinced that will play out the way that you might want it to.
All right. Play out. I'm just telling you about trends that I see. I don't know how it's going to play out. But and I'm really looking back. I'm really looking back at this decade. And and I want to finish up here and just want to say one thing. The last 10 years of the Jewish-Israeli story has been relatively all, there's always wars and news and things. And there's on personal levels, nothing is easy and flowing smoothly. Everybody has their challenges, but the Jewish story has been relatively calm in the last 10 years.
Hodul Hashem Kitov.
But we're also at a decade end and beginning, which is where it's 5780.
Yes.
And if I'm looking at the last 80 years of Jewish history,
it's never been more tumultuous.
It's been the most.
Not since destruction of the Second Temple.
Right. We're
no
talking.
Question.
Right, destruction of the Second Temple. Yeah, the only reason I'm having a kind of like a thought is because because we witnessed something that maybe was never seen before, which was the utter destruction of one form of Jewry and the glorious, almost unspeakable, ineffable rebuilding of the Jewish people in the land of Israel, which is the magnitude of this miracle is hard to maybe the only thing that I get here's the example. The 80% that died in Egypt to those who crossed the Red Sea. That's
you're focused on the miraculous nature. My point was simply in terms of tumult and change. The destruction of the Second Temple, which, by the way, may have seen a comparable percentage of our people murdered,
right?
And the sort of replacement of a temple-based culture with Chazal, with the rabbis, is as much of a transition,
right?
Right? It's just on the way out as opposed to the way in.
But that's a big thing, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I'm not. I'm just saying, but in terms of tumult and transition.
I have a parable that I use in my speeches a lot of times. I say, I'm going to give you a parable, okay? There are two women in a room, and both are unmarried. Both are, what do we call it? Single. Unmarried women. One, her husband just died. And the other one, she's engaged to be married. But technically, they're both single.
They have
the same status. But you can't compare the feeling of somebody who's mourning a dead husband to a woman who's just about to get married. You could say the same thing people say to me, we're still in galut. It's all galut. I'm like, you can't say, technically you may be right that it's not the full redemption, but you cannot compare the status today of the moments before the third Commonwealth, the third temple, and the last 2,000 years.
Not only that, anyone who does, I'm sorry if I'm insulting anyone, obviously is looking to avoid some of the demand that the moment in which we find ourselves makes upon every Jew.
Right. Okay, Rabbi Mike Feuer, we've covered for the last 50 minutes, really the last 10 years,
and I'm feeling it.
Yeah, I think very interesting, and I'm glad that I had a chance to think about it, and it's great to be with you here on your porch. And I want to wish you also a refuah shlema, full recovery.
It's a big mitzvah.
It was a zchut for me to come out today.
You found me here just kind of like twiddling my thumbs.
Yeah, so. You get some kind of drug induced.
Your hair is going long.
Right.
Beard is scraggly.
Right.
Percocet empty on the floor.
I haven't spoken in 20 years. Like that. That's right.
It wasn't pretty, people.
Right. But
I'm feeling much better now.
Right, it's like that verse in, what is it, in the Cheskel or Yirmiyahu? It's the one we say on the Pesach night. I found you naked. And,
it's Cheskel.
Okay.
Whoa. Just dial that back.
Okay, here we go.
Meanwhile,
speaking of Torah, right. Speaking of Torah, I want to say, we're not going to go through a full
Joseph saga.
blow by blow of the Joseph saga, and we also missed parts of it. But I do wanna, with your permission, together with you, to
Sam Etzba.
Yeah, hit a few points. The big one here is, and the rabbis underscore it, it's the face-off between these two mighty men, Judah and Joseph, and the text is softer than the rabbis are gonna. They see it as a clash of titans, a clash of kings. And just to recall, basically, Joseph, as known as Tzafnat Paneach at that moment, has put the situation such that now he's going to take Benjamin as a slave, and this was already something that Judah promised that he wouldn't let happen, that he's going to return Benjamin to his father Yaakov, and
he sees it as a death blow to his father.
And that's what he says. He says, listen, he faces up to Joseph and he says, listen, this would be a death blow to my father. He tells him the whole tale. There is a depth here which is missed sometimes, which is the tension between, there's a tension that underlies the whole question of Joseph being sold down to Egypt. I'll just try to say it quickly, which is, the brothers may believe that Joseph is angling, when they're selling him, they may believe that he's angling to be the chosen element, and they're going to be rejected. Mm-hmm. As just like Ishmael was rejected as opposed to Yitzchak, just like Esav was rejected as opposed to Jacob.
Yeah, there is family history there.
There's a family history there. And according to Rav Yoel Ben Nun, who Rav Yitzchak Et Shalom spoke about on this week's OU Shnai Mikra podcast, his famous thesis is that Joseph thinks that the brothers pushed him out and that he was rejected in cahoots with his own father.
Yeah.
Which is maybe hard to swallow on one level, but on the other hand, maybe understandable now why he really breaks down only at the moment when he learns that his father had thought all this time that Joseph was killed by an animal.
It also solves a very big problem in Pshat.
Mm-hmm.
Because if Joseph was so close to his father, then why, when he had all this power in Egypt, didn't he reach out and try to find him?
Right. And then he learns that's how father understood it.
Right, he was torn apart.
He was torn apart. Oh.
He thought I was dead.
So for the last 22 years,
he's been mourning. And the pain of his beloved father, mourning all that time, breaks him down. Anyway, that's one of the thoughts on that. And so very powerful. Within this story is also the story of two kinds of kings, two kinds of Jewish leaderships. One,
Joseph, later represented by Mordechai in Esther's time, in the palace of Shushan, represents the diaspora leadership, Jews in the diaspora, a minority amongst a powerful minority, a vocal, powerful minority.
Master the foreign game.
Master of the foreign game, master of the foreign court.
Yep.
Jew in the foreign court is that
a well-known phenomenon,
right? And in a whole genre of Daniel, a whole genre of biblical writing, as opposed to Judah, which is the scion of King David, and these are two different leaderships.
That's the native leadership, which is that Malchut, kingship, is really found in full expression of self, right? As opposed to kingship being found in sort of adaptation to the rules of an external game. It's really important. I don't know how far we want to go into it, but just to point out that the way in which the Torah was given to us is that it has a topography. Like you said, it's a clash of the titans, but the sages really draw it out more than the text itself. But it's because they were masters of feeling the topography of the story here. There's an interpersonal level between Joseph and Judah that you can trace back. Then there is a sort of the family dynamic that we're speaking about, who's going to be chosen, who's going to be rejected. Then there's this sort of almost existential level, these or let's say there's the leadership model levels of the Joseph is a diaspora king and Judah is the sort of native born. And then there's the more existential, which is these are two layers of Messiah. Right. There's a absolute redemptive process coming to a head here. Right. And people have to appreciate that when you have a story whose topography is so profound that it can play out from the personal to the family to the national to the existential, it deserves quite a bit of attention.
Right. And I wish I had time to go into this, but it turns out that I don't. But I wanted to talk about when these two messiahs, these two kings, work together, and they work together in many stories in the Tanakh. And my favorite, of course, story of the sin of the spies, where the two spies that are able to overcome the other 10 are the sign of the tribes of Judah, which is Kalev ben Yefuneh, and the sign of the tribes of Ephraim, which is from Joseph. When they work together, they can work miracles.
And that also is the vision of Yechezkel, of the ultimate redemption, of the reuniting of Joseph and Judah.
Right,
Joseph
reuniting is two sticks that are bound together.
Right.
Not one.
They're two different things.
Right.
Well, and that's important to remember, is that we're...
Like a Twix bar.
Like a Twix bar.
Like a Twix bar.
Right. Well, we're people of a tribal nature, and it's a mistake to think that all Jews need to be the same.
Right.
Because all Jews need to be united in one mission, but everyone brings something very different to the table.
That's right. And I haven't had a Twix bar in many years. That was
even those like fake Kif Kef.
No, that's Kit Kat.
Kif Kef.
Twix, Kit Kat.
Twix. Yeah, it's not the same thing.
These are two different things.
Yes.
But I used to love Twix, but since it's not Chalav Yisrael, I haven't had it in a long time. In any case, I want to say to you that one of the most moving verses for me is really the last time that G-D, that God himself, is going to make an appearance in the book. The last time that he makes an appearance in the book of Genesis is when Jacob gets the message about and he sees that his son Joseph is alive, O Joseph Chai, and it says V'techi ruach Yaakov avim, and his spirit enlivened, revivified, the famous Chabad word, revivified, and he says, okay, I'm going to go down to Egypt, but you know what? There's a little problem, which is leaving the land of Israel. And so he's going to go to one of the holy places in the land of Israel on the way down to Egypt. That's the place you stop. That's the holy place you stop on the way down. What's that place?
Beersheba.
Okay, and he comes to Beersheba and he offers up sacrifices to the God of his father Yitzchak, who never left the land of Israel. And God says to him, and he says to Israel, right, the regal name in the visions of the night, saying, Jacob, Jacob, and he says, here I am. I'm guessing, is there a Hineni with Moshe Rabbeinu? I think there is.
Yes.
But here, the last Hineni in the book of Genesis, all these different great Hinenis that we've had, here's the Hineni. He says, here I am. I'm here to serve God. He says, listen, I am the God of your father. Don't be afraid of going down to Egypt, because I'm going to make you into a great nation there. I will bring you down to Egypt. Anochi ered imcha mitzrayma. I bring you down to Egypt, but I will bring you back up, boy. Gamalo, I will indeed bring you up. V'Yosef yashit yado al einecha. Yosef is going to, what probably means close your eyes when you die.
Sure.
And that's the last vision that God appears to appears in this book.
And there's a reason for that. Because, the Ramban says in his introduction to the Chumash, Maaseh Avod Siman Banim, right? That everything that our forefathers went through is a sign to their children. What does that mean? It's the same concept I said before, that there's a topography of story, of narrative that we're walking on today. It's not that we're playing out. Now, I don't mean to say that we're bit characters in somebody else's story. We are agents in our story, but there's a topography across which we move. And one of those important elements happens in this moment here, because it says Al Tira Yaakov. And that becomes a theme that expresses itself in the later prophets. Al Tira Avdi Yaakov. Don't be afraid. Why? Listen, it's a scary world out there. In that decade that we just look back on, I have a sense that the coming decade is going to be even more tumultuous. It's gonna make it look somewhat tame, in fact, right? But don't be afraid. Why? Because there is a redemptive narrative which the Jewish people have been placed upon, and even if it seems dark and slow and bumpy along the way, the fear is the actual enemy, and that's why God says, "Don't be afraid. I'm going to take you down, and I'll bring you back."
Amen. All right. With that, we're going to cap off this part of the show. There's more to talk about, of course, this Torah portion, about Jacob meeting Joseph, about Jacob blessing Pharaoh, and about Joseph's weird and powerful reorganization, societal reorganization, realignment, which is just like, it's something that we, it's at the end of the Torah portion. It's easy to kind of to skip as we're skipping now, but we'll try to talk about it next week. A very powerful thing that Joseph, this real catalyst of change. I would say if I have to.
That's a good word for Yosef.
Right.
That's why he's Mirat Yesod.
Right. Yeah, he's a catalyst for change.
That's exactly. He brings things together.
Yeah. Not a great communicator, in my opinion. Not a great communicator, but a great catalyst for change. He gets it done. Exactly. Gets it done. His talking is...
Well, as you pointed out, that was... actually, that was Rivka coming through. It wasn't Rachel. But anyway. He must have picked it up.
Anyway, not warm in terms of people, but certainly moves the map around, really knows how to move the map around, shape it around. In any case, Rabbi Mike Feuer, again, Refuah Shlema.
I mean, thanks so much for coming to visit me.
Absolutely. And everybody write, please, hashtag Refuah Shlema to Rabbi Mike, Rav Mike at thelandofisrael.com. Refuah Shlema means full healing. You could write it in Hebrew, English, whatever. You could also just write
be well.
Be well, or sei gesund, or
anything else that's
season's greetings, whatever you want. Happy New Year. Shana Tova Umatuka, everybody. We're going to try to be back with another part of the show today. I'm not sure if it's either going to be either Malkah Fleisher, or I've just gotten an invitation to the big Anglo Siyum Hashas, the end of the learning of the 7-year cycle of learning the Talmud. So tonight at Binyanei Uma, so maybe I'll get some audio from there. So I don't know what's next. So keep you guessing. So that means you're just going to have to stay tuned and stay connected and stay strong. Don't touch that dial. You're listening to the Yishai Fleisher Show, Land of Israel Network, thelandofisrael.com. Write me an email, yishai at thelandofisrael.com. Stay tuned, stay strong, stay connected. Rabbi Mike, thanks again.
Shalom.
Shalom. We'll be right back.
This week on Inside Israel Today with Gil Hoffman, an exclusive interview with former Israeli ambassador to the U.S., Michael Oren, on the rash of anti-Semitic attacks in America.
Those attacks on Jews in New York is not isolated incidents, but part of a national scourge that has to be confronted, and not just by putting policemen in front of synagogues.
For the full interview, check out Inside Israel Today with Gil Hoffman every Tuesday on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com.
All right, folks, we're back here on the Yishai Fleisher Show, and I did not get any audio from last night's very, very special Siyum Hashas. I was trying to get some audio. Malkah, welcome to the show. Malkah Fleisher, shalom.
Thanks, Yishai. Shalom. What happened?
It was just not. It was not a place to get audio. There was just no. There was no time to interview anybody.
No good bites.
Yeah, there was no good bites, but it was quite an experience. And that's opposed to or complements the event that happened at MetLife Stadium in New York, where it was really like, I don't know how many people showed up there. It looked like 40,000 people.
Oh, wow.
We had like ours was only the English Siyum. Run by the Aguda, the American
Agudas Israel.
Agudas Israel, the kind of it was like an Anglo aspect of It was of America, but in Israel. Anyway, it was like an American event in Israel. It was very interesting. It was, on the one hand, there was definitely a daf yomi. There was a lot of gedolim. There was a lot of great. Just to backtrack, last night they finished the 7-year cycle of studying the Babylonian Talmud. 7.5 years, really. And they did it. They did it at the same time at MetLife and in other places, and they did it in Jerusalem in English. And it was. And I got a ticket through a Jewish press. I saw some of my rabbis there. It was fun. I saw Rabbi Fass. From Nefesh B'Nefesh. I saw Rabbi Benjamin Yudin from Fairlawn. It was nice. It was really nice. And there was some fun music also. There was one interlude where there was like a lull because like one rabbi didn't show up. So some kid in the stands just started singing a song, and the whole place joined
what song?
up. An I song. I don't remember exactly which one, but a known tune.
That's cool.
And it was just neat. I knew the minute he started it
that it was good. That
it
it was
gonna
viral.
Catch. Yeah, it was like, and it only started slowly, but I was like, it's catching. So I was like, I told Steve, I'm like, let's stand up already. Let's just do it because it's gonna happen. And then there was this band. I'm always jealous of the band.
Why?
You know, they sit like they're like dead faced. Like they're like musicians. They're not like they're not like an
right.
act.
They're not performers.
Right. They're performers, but they're not like
face
the
performers.
Yeah, right. They're not the guy, right?
Yeah.
They're just the two trumpeters and the guitarist and the keyboardist. And just whenever music starts, they do it.
Oh, so they jumped in?
They jumped in.
That's
And once
fun.
they jumped in, and they're pros. And they just got it. You know,
Wow.
they know how to like do it. Oh, there's a drummer. Of course, there's a drummer. That's
right.
a big thing.
Give it a little beat.
Percussion, and so, you know, it just the way like when like there's people singing and then suddenly the music like comes in.
Yeah,
it's cool. It's cool. It was a beautiful thing. It was really a beautiful thing. It was like Harnof was there and people from Flatbush were there, and they had a beautiful video. This was a cool thing. They had a beautiful video of places around the world learning the Talmud.
What, like guys in yeshiva sitting down?
Not in yeshiva. Balei Batim, regular like working folks learning Daf Yomi. And it was like Denver, Dallas, Flatbush, Harnof, Arzeh Bira, I don't know, something like Melbourne. It wouldn't be like Melbourne. A lot of times they would say like this part of London, and you had a picture of these guys, not a picture, a video of these guys learning, and like as though a little like stuck onto it it wasn't like the name was underneath it in 2D. It was like there was the 3D letters that said like Dallas, and it was just like as though it was sitting on a stand. The word Dallas. And just people learning Torah, and it was a beautiful thing. They used the event to say a Mishaberach for all the sick people and stuff like that. I wish they would have stopped and also made a point to talk about the victims of terror, of American terror.
Right.
Not to mention Israeli terror. But they're very non-political. Like it was a very black hat event.
So worried about that stuff.
Oh my gosh, Malkah.
Yeah.
You are gonna appreciate this. This is
okay,
the craziest
I'm excited.
thing. This is the craziest thing.
Okay.
At MetLife Stadium, there was a guy who dressed up like Waldo. And so you have 40,000 people with black hats.
Whoa.
And a guy
with the red hat.
The full Waldo outfit.
Whoa.
He put it on, and like he was all everywhere in the pictures. Like, where's Waldo?
And you could see him.
Yeah.
Wow, because he stuck out because he was the one guy wearing a collar.
He was Waldo.
Whoa.
And I think it was
that's cool.
Jewish Orthodox guy. It was not.
Oh, you think it was an independent initiative? It wasn't like they didn't hire a guy to be Waldo.
I don't know, but anyway, it's a cool thing, and there's a lot of pictures around.
That's funny.
Malkah, with Rabbi Mike Feuer in the last half, I guess that's a good way to think about what I talked about with Rabbi Mike Feuer, which is the decade, and there was also the decade of Torah learning. There was new books that came out, and there was a full decade of Torah learning and 7.5 years of the cycle. So that's pretty neat. And now to go to the complete other extreme, when I was researching this last decade and just kind of looking at it, do you know what video kept popping up as one of the kind of most popular and like iconic videos
of the last
decade? And there was a few songs that like.
Oh, it's a song.
I meant a song video, a cultural song video.
I'm gonna go with Gangnam Style.
That's right. It was Gangnam Style.
I was right.
It was Gangnam Style.
Oh, My gosh.
Not only was
I don't even know how to feel about that, actually.
Now
that I know that. I just happen to know that when it came out, since we're talking about the decade, I happen to know that when it came out, it like shattered all the YouTube records or whatever.
I look it up right now. It has 3.42 billion.
Oh, that's so crazy.
Billion viewers. Now the video is, I can't recommend it to anybody because it is not within the
realms of holiness,
of holiness and modesty at all. But on the other hand, it is darn funny and a new like way of looking at things with a lot of humor, by the way. Also, obviously, gratuitous stuff, but also like humor. And the other thing about that video and the song and the humor is that it was copied thousands and maybe hundreds of thousands of times different ways.
Right, parodied,
including by a video that I did watch this morning, which was Elkin style.
Right.
Which was Zev
really
Elkin.
Good.
You got to see it again.
I've seen it. I remember.
It is wild.
It weirdly did not do anything for him politically, but it was a great video.
And you know what? It doesn't even have that many views. It has like under 10,000 views or something, but it was an incredible... Zev Elkin, a minister here in Israel today, and he was running within the Likud. This was a party with... This was a race within the Likud itself.
Right, a primaries race.
A primaries race, and he put out this crazy video of him, Elkin style, giving a lot of hard time to people on the left and the Arab parties and Tzipi Livni and Oppenheimer from Peace Now. So okay. I think also in this decade, Malkah, you and I had a lot of Fleisher style. Opa, Fleisher style. Okay, so we've had a lot of I guess turns. We've lived in 3 different places in this.
That's right.
Is that 3 different places?
We moved in the last. So I thought about it. In the last 10 years, we moved from Beit El to Jerusalem, from a caravan to a 5-bedroom apartment.
Right.
Then we moved from Jerusalem to Judea. Basically, we've traveled the whole biblical highway.
Most of it,
mostly in our life living travels. We have gotten and lost a dog. I think in the last 10 years.
We didn't.
Maybe we got her slightly before.
We didn't lose a dog.
Not lose,
we gave her away.
Right, that was hard. Peel Pell, the dog. For any of you who've followed us for a really long time on radio,
right,
then you'll remember the name of Peel Pell from days gone by.
Right.
I've given birth to 2 human beings.
Yep.
Without an epidural.
Yeah, who are now talking.
Yeah, they could speak and walk around and do homework, some of them.
Right.
What else have we done? I've held down multiple jobs, so have you.
Yep. I had Jewish Press, Voice of Israel, and now spokesman in Chevron. And I've been through different channels, including Arutz Sheva. I talked about this in the last half as well. Arutz Sheva, Galei Israel, Voice of Israel, now the Land of Israel Network.
You forgot about Nefesh B'Nefesh.
That was...
You worked at Nefesh B'Nefesh for a little while.
Yeah, it was...
Could I count it?
All right.
It counts?
I guess so.
Part of your decade.
Yeah, it was part of my decade, yeah. Speaking of that, I saw
her by fast yesterday. We got rid of our little
yesterday.
Peugeot in the last 10 years, our little white Peugeot.
Yeah, we had a Subaru. We have a Subaru.
Now
it's still
we have
with
a Subaru.
us. And the red car, the red and white.
The red car.
Skoda.
The red Hebron car.
Yeah, the red Hebron car, that's right. Driving Target.
What else? I've gained X pounds. We won't talk about it.
You've also lost X pounds.
Yes, and then gained X pounds.
I've net gained X pounds, but I'm gonna knock them out soon.
Do you realize that in 10 years you have 520 Shabbatot? That's a lot of challah, Yishai.
That is a lot.
How much chicken do you think that is?
Oh, gewalt.
That's like a lot of chicken.
Yeah, I don't want to. I don't know. I don't.
Well, you're not supposed to really think about 10 years of chicken, you know?
Yeah, I can't believe how much every day. Like I eat like every day. I can't believe that. Last night after the Siyum Hashas, went to my mother's house.
Yeah, good. Your mother.
She gave me.
Your mother made Aliyah in the last 10 years?
My mother and my sister.
And your sister and your brother.
And my brother, that's right.
Your whole family basically made
that's
Aliyah.
Right.
I netted 0 family Aliyahs in the last 10
years.
That's okay. Okay, that's fine. I gave the hard sell to a bunch of people.
And some of our family married Gentiles.
Well, you know. It's in every family.
Yerida. Hey, nothing against the Gentiles, our beloved friends here. But still, even the Gentiles that are listening to this show want to make sure that the Jewish people continue, right?
I lost 3 grandparents.
Oof. I lost how many also?
You lost 2.
Yeah.
No, 3. You also lost 3 grandparents in the last 10 years.
Oh my gosh.
Right? Judge Mark, how long has he been passed away?
Yeah, I think 10 years.
Yeah.
Josh
was the first one to go. Mm-hmm. No, Grandma Anna was the first one to go.
Yep. Yeah.
Alehem Shalom.
Yep, you're right, Malkah. These are strong points.
Yeah, these are like
these are
the
strong
things that happened to a person in the last 10 years. Yeah. I'm not a big lover of like doing these recaps and thinking about on the last 10 years.
Well, because never dredge up that hated emotion.
Right, the nostalgia.
I do not do nostalgia. Okay, you know that, people. I do not do nostalgia.
And then you have to do all this like, well, did I do well in the last 10 years? Did I not do well in the last 10 years?
Yeah.
Oh God, I was I was in my 20s.
Yeah.
10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm in no 20s now.
An awesome guy here in town, excuse me, said to me, 40 to 50 is the best ride on the highway.
I'm so excited that will be true.
You will enter that high.
You sound like, are you okay over there trying to absorb this 40 to 50?
No. It's just phlegm. Anyway, I want to bless everybody with an awesome, I really hope that you had a good decade.
Wait, I want to say one more thing about the last 10 years, Yishai. Something big has happened for the Jewish people in the last 10 years, aside from the fact, of course, that so many more Jews have been born.
Wait, I forgot to tell you what happened at my mom's house. 2 things.
Oh, yeah.
I say to my mom, I come to my mom's house, and first thing she feeds me,
What'd she feed you? I'm your wife. I want
mushroom soup.
Ooh, yeah.
That she made.
I heard that it's really good.
These are French mushrooms.
Yeah, she's very excited about the Frenchness.
See, my mom, she lives next to the shuk. So the bazaar, the market,
the open air market,
and she's always like excited about something.
Yeah, that's the best produce in Israel.
Right.
Comes through
so it was very good.
And was it good mushroom soup?
Yeah, it was quite good.
Brought me some.
And then she says, and I said to her, nothing major happened to Israel in the last 10 years. Like it's been a very steady decade. She's like, we had gas exploration. I'm like, yep. She's like, it's a revolution.
Yeah,
I'm like, yep,
it's true that.
it was just a funny moment. So I'm
we
like,
launched that little space thingy into outer space.
Pancake on the moon.
Beret sheet.
Yeah, break sheet. Okay, no,
delete. Edit that.
It was awesome till the last moment. It's still
Yishai, all your nieces and nephews were born in the last 10 years.
Holy cow, Malkah.
Every one of them.
Holy moly.
Isn't that cool? Like our whole family was basically built in the last 10 years.
Wow.
There were marriages, except for you and me. We're the old couple in the family. But everybody else, all the other
Dude,
brothers
we are
and sisters have been married for 10 years or less. We're the oldest in our family.
We're the zeros, man.
We're the zeros?
Yeah, not the tens.
Speak for yourself.
Not the 20s. We're the 2000s, whatever, the early 2000s.
Yeah.
We were 2002.
We were still using CD players when we got married.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
You got me a CD player one time.
Did I?
Or did I buy that for myself?
No, I didn't get you a CD player, but I used your CD player. We owned a VCR TV.
So good. I miss
you
VCR.
Owned one. I don't.
Yeah, the little
VCR.
Cutest little VCR. One of these TVs that had
like
a
7-inch.
player.
You had a 7-inch TV with a.
I got my
VCR.
first cell phone in the last 10 years. I think.
Oh my god!
Wow, I was a late adapter.
That is not.
No, that's not true.
That's not true.
But almost. It's almost true.
Oh my god!
I got my first cell phone when we were living on the RTC Shy.
Okay, but you weren't a late adapter. For example, email. You were an emailer early on.
I adapted right at the right time.
Okay, what else is the other Malkah good news about this last
decade?
decade?
What I wanted to say about the last decade is that we gained like 1.7 million Israelis in the last 10 years. And they expect that by 2024, the Central Bureau of Statistics came out with its data on the last day of 2019.
Yeah.
Saying that they expect by 2024 we will have 10 million people. We're over 9 million people. We're at like 9.1 million people now. And Yishai, there's something that I remember us talking.
Right.
So many years ago, speaking of 10 years.
Yeah.
I remember that we used to talk in the Arutz Sheva studios.
Right.
About demographics. People would talk about the demographics and what are we going to do? And oh no, right? And it's so bad. And the Arab birth rate is so much higher than the Jewish birth rate. Well, I have some news for you.
Yeah.
Also on Tuesday, the Central Bureau of Statistics came out with its data for 2018, which was already like, I don't know what took them so long to crunch those numbers, whatever, over there, government jobs, okay? In 2018, for the first time in Israel's history, the Jewish birth rate surpassed the Arab birth rate. We're talking about Israelis now.
Israel style.
Israel style. Dun, 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 dun.
Okay.
Israel style.
Nice.
Anyway, I think we're at 3.05 kids per lady.
Nice.
Where the Arab birth rate has...
The 0.5 is... But then we do the pre-Milan. We get rid of this 0.5.
Blah, 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 blah. You have a lot of editing to do for this one.
Oh. You mean snipping?
Oh. Oh my God.
You heard about...
No.
You heard about the guy... Did you ever see this tweet about the car? A guy takes a picture from his car to the license plate of the car in front, and it says Mohel.
Yeah.
And he's like, that's the second time that guy cut me off.
I've never liked circumcision jokes.
That's because your dad is a urologist, and it's
I guess it's a sore
close
point.
Okay.
Wow, I do not like the direction the show is going.
No.
The point is that the Jewish birth rate. Now they're not counting non-citizens of Israel, meaning to say there's like a whole other population of people around here who are not citizens.
Yeah.
And that was not part of the analysis.
Right.
But nonetheless, it's very, very interesting that the Jewish birth rate has gone up, and they're expecting it's going to continue to go up. And really, like, who are we talking about that are having all these kids? I mean, certainly secular Israelis like to have kids too. It's not like secular, I just saw this.
If it wasn't for the secular, that number wouldn't be there.
The secular Israelis like to have kids in Israel.
Because it's also there's family values in our country. Okay, there's family values. Our country's...
There's also there's always this question about like Israel and socialism, and some people like the idea that Israel has socialist aspects, and some people really don't.
Right.
And there's a lot of people who want different parts of Israel to like go away from the socialist model and stuff. But the truth is that Israel is really established also to provide a lot of support for women who have children.
Absolutely.
And what I really mean is things like childcare.
Absolutely.
And healthcare.
Absolutely.
Those things in Israel are like, if you don't have good childcare and you don't have good healthcare, it's really hard to have a big family because you're doing it all on your own. Or you're paying through the nose to do it.
To have a small family also. To have a child,
right?
You need help.
And Jewish education also.
That's right.
In Israel, like, you almost can't not get a Jewish education. I mean, you could definitely get a bad Jewish education, I guess. I'm not vouching for every school in Israel by any means. But like the idea that this is a Jewish country and that we teach Jewish holidays around the Jewish holidays, etc., is like pretty fundamental across the country. So between all these things, it's like it's kind of comfortable to have children. Your sister Yishai, she works full time, and she has three. She is now on chufshat leida. She's on maternity leave, but she is able to have kids because she is able to stick the kids in government subsidized childcare.
No question. And again, she did have those kids in the last decade because that's what the show's about.
That's right. In all the last decade, we're very blessed.
I just want to finish off by really wishing a speedy recovery to the folks of the Muncie attack.
Right.
Including,
terrible.
If you look at my Twitter, you'll see a horrible, horrific picture of Yosef Newman.
At first, I saw that on your Twitter.
Yeah.
Rabbi Yosef Newman.
Yeah. I
saw the picture of him, and at first I was like, the word offended isn't right, but like I kind of didn't want to see that.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
But then I was really glad that image went up, because look what happened to this beautiful Jew. Like they cut him down. Literally, they cut him down.
Yep.
And it's like important to see the face of this thing.
100%. I always say that. That's why I watch.
Look what they do to us.
Right. That's why you got to watch like Holocaust stuff. You can't sanitize it. If you sanitize it, then you don't have. And here's really something that I should have written about already, but I haven't. But like, the way that they sanitize it is that they sanitize it, and then there's a purpose in sanitizing it, which is take away rage. And that is one of the main goals of the other side,
right?
The Israel haters. One of their main things is to stop Jewish rage. I'm telling you.
Well, I wouldn't say, Yishai, I wish that you were right. But I do not think that it's the Israel haters who do this. I think it's the Israel lovers who do it too. I think their motivation is different. They don't necessarily, I'm not sure, I mean, maybe they want to take away the rage, but I think that what they want to do is make people less horrified so that they feel the strength to go on, right? Because when you're living with fear and you're living with dread and you're living with disgust and depression over what happens, so it's like harder to go on. And Israel in particular has always had this attitude where it's like, God forbid there should never be another one. But if there's a terror attack, it's like clean it up really fast. And open up the roads and like get it going again, right? They don't shut down the thing for 2 days as they're
that's just
because
not that is not my philosophy. I disagree with that. I feel that that's I don't mind cleaning it up and going on with life, but you got to look at that horror in the face,
right?
And you got to be enraged, and then you got to say the words "never again," and you got to go out there with a raging vengeance,
right?
And take care of that business and make sure that never happens again,
right?
And that to me is like it's internally like a core value to me, and I'm always amazed that people don't. And I think it's because people feel disempowered. They don't know how to act on rage.
Right. Well, a regular person in theory is not supposed to act, right? That's why you establish a government with a
No, that is not why you establish a government. A government receives its legitimacy from the people giving up willingly that what's it called? Justice, vigilante justice. I give up my right of vigilante justice. I don't. It's not because I give up my right and I give it to you.
That's a lot of political theory, but the point is that people in regular, society today, in regular democratic society, were born into captivity, as it were, and we're all not entitled, as it were, to take justice into our own hands. And we have a government which is established to do this for us so that we don't have to do it. We have a police department so that we don't have to be the police. We have a fire department so we don't all have to put out the fire, right? We create these systems in order to do the work that a regular person doesn't want to do or can't do on his own. I think, Yishai, also in the last 10 years, we also developed the Iron Dome missile defense system.
Yep.
And, this is also a technology which is really debated right now. Because on the one hand, like, what would we do without the Iron Dome missile defense system?
Yeah.
On the other hand, you see that the Iron Dome is like, you see the IDF on Twitter. And they're like, well, they shot 2 rockets at us and we deployed the Iron Dome missile defense system and we neutralized them, right? And on the one hand, you're like, well, Baruch Hashem, right? Thank the Lord that we no longer live in a scenario in which we have to be like terrified of every rocket and we can go on with life.
Right.
On the other hand, like, did you just realize that they shot 2 rockets at us and our response to that is to go on with life? Like, we're not supposed to go on with life. That is the wrong reaction. And this is kind of, related to what you're talking about the terrorism. It's like, on the one hand, we have this value, and bichlal for Jews, who have undergone this kind of lifestyle for so long, you really have to develop a living strategy, which is about going on with life. On the other hand, like, you have to react to, we live in a sovereign Jewish state today, and you can't be just going on with life. You have to stop life, and you have to be like, whoa, 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 and this should really shake you up and make you want to do something differently, but it's not.
You're right about Iron Dome, Malkah, and of course, let's finish off the show by reminding everybody that we have a real Iron Dome on top of the technological Iron Dome. In an Iron Dome of our will, also we have, of course, the protection of Hashem, who in this last decade has given the land of Israel lots of blessings and the Jewish people lots of blessings, challenges, but incredible blessings that you talked about in our families. Let's pray for the sick. Let's remember those who have passed away. For example, Ari Fuld was murdered this year, this decade, and many other good people. Like
Ori Ansbacher,
Rina Schnerb, and many others. And so it's important to remember them. It's important to pray for those who have been cut down, as you say, and also to thank God for the great gifts of life and of moving the story forward. Malkah, I also want to thank you for a great decade.
Yes.
Thanks for all that chicken.
10 years together, Yishai.
10 years of you standing me. That is amazing. Amazing. I'm not sure whose achievement that is. Is it my achievement that I married a woman who could stand me for 10 years? Is it your achievement that you could stand me for 10 years? I'm not sure. One or the other. We have been on the same path together now, holding hands for the last decade and more. And
Amen. To the next 10.
To the next 10. Amen. Amen. All right, folks. Check out all of our friends and sponsors. One sponsor that I want to really mention is JewishPress.com. JewishPress.com has been host to the show for a long time, and they really do a great job at getting this show out. And also they have a great email called Jewish Express, and I highly recommend that you sign up for that because you really get the day's news. And they have a great way of covering stuff. So that's JewishPress.com. Our good friends at Tchelet.com, who make the blue strings that you can don and clothe yourself in this decade with the redemptive blue string that bespeaks of the depths of the waters and the impenetrable heavens of God, and reminds you to go on the pathway on the dry land. Of being with God, with his in His way. So that's Tchelet, TEKHELET.com, Tchelet.com. And of course, come and visit. When you come to Israel, you'll fly into Tel Aviv. Of course, you'll go up to pilgrimage to Yerushalayim, but don't forget the mothers and the fathers in Hebron at Hebron Fund. We'll give you a fabulous tour of Hebron once a week. Just sign up for one of our tours, hebronfund.org. I want to thank our last sponsor, which is, of course, thelandofisrael.com, which is a fabulous network broadcasting beautiful truths and beautiful sounds of the land of Israel in the English language, so that you, wherever you are around the world, whatever is your native language, we can connect on the lingua franca of English through the super democratic internet that allows you to tune in to places around the world. And we are connected. So the last, I thanked God and I thanked our sponsors. I want to thank you as well for being out there and being strong.
And we definitely have some listeners who have been listening to us for 10 years and more.
That's right. That's right. Hashtag to the next decade.
Yes.
Or hashtag
10 more years.
10 more years. That's right. I like that. 10 more years. Hashtag 10 more years, at least, in parentheses.
Yes.
And any other hashtags that you remember of cool stuff that happened to you this decade. It could be Gangnam Style. It could be Elkin Style hashtag. It could be hashtag Iron Dome, or it could be hashtag Me Too, or it could be hashtag I don't know what else. Whatever you think was your decade.
Hashtag 10 years of chicken.
Right. Hashtag 10 years of cholent. Whatever you. We don't eat cholent in this house so much, but whatever did it for you this decade or didn't do it for you, and you remember it. Send a little hashtag about that to Yishai at thelandofisrael.com. That'll be very, very precious. And we bless you and we love you. Malkah, I want to thank you.
Thanks, Yishai.
And wish you a Shabbat Shalom.
This should be like you put on Facebook. On Twitter. This should be a year of 2020 vision. That's right. That's right. I was not the first person to come up with that one, but I also want to thank Tabitha, Moshe, and Ben for getting the show out. You guys are beautiful. You guys are amazing. God bless you, folks. Mazel tov to Moshe.
Oh, that's right.
Mazel tov to Moshe.
Mazel tov to our beloved.
He kicked off the decade.
He kicked off the decade with twins.
Twins, a boy and a girl.
Moshe.
Wow, 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 wow.
Moshe, mazel tov to your new family.
Oh, my gosh. Moshe.
To your new family, yeah.
You look great. God. Sent us pictures. They're very cute.
Mazel tov, everybody.
Everyone should feel healthy.
Yalla, let's finish it up. Let's finish off the decade by saying Bismachot. Let's start off the decade by saying B'ezrat Hashem. Let's move forward.
Yes,
Avanti.
amen.
Avanti, as we say in Italian. Let's move forward. B'atzlacha Rabbi, everybody. God bless. Stay tuned, stay strong, stay connected, and
Shalom.
We must always take sides, says Elie Wiesel. Neutrality helps the oppressor, never the victim. Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented. And if you've been listening for any time at all, then you know I'm not one to keep silent, because I'm Rabbi Mike Feuer, and this is The Jewish Story.